How are ya?
Chapter 12, Section 2, drum roll please. Local government services and revenue.
Everybody likes the Benjamins.
All right, so again, main idea here, local governments provide a wide variety of important everyday issues and services. Several sources of revenue help pay for these services. Some of the things that we're going to talk about are utilities. We mentioned a little bit about zoning already. Property taxes, intergovernmental revenue, and last but not least, grants.
Oh, he's a nice boy.
Here we go.
All right, education. It's very important and a very expensive aspect of government. So our local governments have decided to invest in you.
Remember, state government is the most expensive of what our government spends each year in the budget. So it takes up the most of the budget.
You go. So if you're ever worried about wasting the taxpayers' money on something, look at yourself first. Are you getting the best bang out of your tax dollar?
Okay.
All right, what's next?
Health and welfare, programs designed to give assistance of those who are in need. So these would all be our programs and stuff to help people, obviously, that are disadvantaged, having problems and stuff in their life, that they obviously are going to receive some of the help that they need.
And you're going to see a lot of these in this COVID-19 period of time where people are looking for health insurance assistance, housing assistance, all these kind of things. I think it's awesome that our local, cooks and stuff and bus drivers are getting out and, getting hundreds of lunches and whatnot out to our students. And let's talk about some more public safety, our police and firemen.
Right. So, each city, I'm on the police commission. I've been on it for, I don't know, close to 30 years. And each local government has to decide, what their priority is and how many people they're going to have in their department. So we've got the police and we have the sheriff's department, and in Morris, we also have the university. So it feels in Morris like we have a large number of people, but right now we only have like 6 police officers. And if you think about it, they service our community 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And that's 6 people. We're supposed to have 7 or 8, but we're a little short. And so we lean on the county and the university police. They all come together and help one another when necessary.
And we call them heroes, but the unsung heroes are the second part of that is the fire department. Our fire department here are mainly volunteers, people who are deciding to help out our community by being in there in a time of need. And the list of fire department personnel is unbelievable in regards to the number of people that have graduated from our school here. So you might be sitting back there listening right now, and honestly, maybe in 10 years, 15 years, you'll be helping out our community being a volunteer firefighter. And it's an awesome job. I know the people, they give a lot to our community, and I have hats off to our fire department.
And some of them are your parents, so when you go home, thank them.
Moving on. Utilities. These are the silent heroes, right?
Yeah.
Because if your sewage backs up,
Stuff usually, a lot of it's underground.
you don't see it. And it's awesome. But these are the things that are needed, like our water. Morris has an entire water softening system now for the entire city. Gas, electric, sewage, garbage, all these things are held at the local level.
Speaking at sewage, here's just a thought. Where do you think our sewer stuff goes? I mean, have you noticed it around town? You know where it's at? Where like our areas are at? Some of you probably don't know. I mean, every year I ask this question, and a lot of the students they don't know where the ponds are, where our sewage is collected. Ms. Ringenberg, you want to tell them where it's at?
I don't know where it's at.
Do you know where it's at?
Well, some days you can kind of tell by the smell, can't you?
It's over by Pomme de Terre where the park is at. You keep on going past the Pomme de Terre Park, and then if you're heading out, if you go on to to your right, there are big sewer treatment plants, and that's where our stuff, when we flush it, that's where it goes.
It's a brand new facility. And when we were budgeting for it, the government, there were grants available, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. There were grants available with the local or the state government. And so the state government actually ponied up quite a bit of money for the water treatment plant. Hey, for those of you who are looking for a career, there are so many municipalities that are looking for people who have that kind of a degree to run a water treatment plant. Most or many water treatment plants don't have people with the right credentials in there. They have to make do because there aren't enough people with those credentials. So if you're looking for something like that with good benefits and good retirement, that's a great job, so you could look into that. But yeah, we were able to acquire a lot of money through the state. I'm not sure, maybe federal funds as well. And that's why we built it when we built it, was to take advantage of the money that was available. So the water treatment plants out by the girls'
University.
Softball fields at the university. And they're redoing all the softball fields too. So that's a local, state.
Yeah, that's local and state, school district, however you want to look at it, and we do great. Big Cat is the same thing. That stadium was built with cooperative work between different agencies and local governments and state governments. So, we're doing our part over here.
Okay. What we got next?
All right, planning. All right, utilities are planned on the local level where the needs of the people can best be met. And that's right. Do you want somebody in St. Paul telling you, which pothole to fill in? No, so that's got to be done at the local level.
Something that they're doing with, go back, will you?
To zoning?
Yeah. To the other, was that where we were?
No, we were playing.
There. Oh shoot, I lost where I was. Oh, with utilities, one of the big decisions that will be made in the next 10, 15 years is whether or not Wi-Fi will be considered a utility, like a required utility, that you don't necessarily just sign up for it, you get it. So that's part of a big discussion, but it's very expensive, and how do they get it to everyone? But it's not just a local issue, it's a federal issue, because there are a lot of people who live in areas where it's hard to get the internet. So broadband issues are really big, and they're looking at putting that in utilities.
And just another thing, when you talk about utilities, is garbage and garbage pickup. The city hires out and uses Ingebrigtsens to take care of their garbage. And for many cities around the United States, garbage is a big issue about where you're going to dispose your garbage and how you're going to get rid of your garbage. And are you planning on just burning your garbage or burying your garbage? And in our town here, the city of Morris, I know we've been working very heavily with the city of Germany, our sister city, and trying to come up with ways in which we can take care of garbage and reuse and recycle and try to be a more clean, friendly type of community.
And one of the biggest problems that we're having in our city is that the people who have contracted to take our garbage are thinking about not taking our garbage. And then where does our garbage go? And when you think about it, when you drive down the streets and all of our garbage cans are out on whatever day you're assigned to put yours out, where does that garbage go? And a problem is like our recycling. We don't take care of our recycling as well as we should. We're supposed to have our cans cleaned out and our bottles cleaned out. And so when we take our recycling to the recycling plant, there's so much food stuff attached to it that it gets rejected. Some of it gets rejected, like a percentage, and then it costs us a lot more. So one of the major problems or major issues that Blaine Hill deals with and our city deals with is garbage. And that sounds really kind of crazy, but it is.
Next, we got zoning.
Zoning.
Again, local rules that divide a community into areas and tell you how much land in each area can be used. And we discussed that kind of the last chapter last section when we were looking at zoning and deciding how areas get divided up. And if you happen to, maybe last year or the year before, happen to ever be in my room, you see I have a large map of the city of Morris. So, and that's how it's zoned out. And I know Blaine Hill has put a lot of time in looking at zoning and trying to come up with better ways in which our city can be planned for its growth in the future.
Right, in the entire planning process, you know, there are so many steps that have to be taken, and it's not easy because this is any event, you know, like I remember like when your street was getting redone, and there was a big argument about how wide should that street be and whatnot. You know, should they shrink it? That would save the taxpayer money, but it would also increase the risk of damage to property and access to the villa down the way there and whatnot. And so
there's always this big argument always that goes on, the way that Morris is set up in regards to like who pays for the street that's by your house. If it gets fixed, should the people that only live on the street pay for it, or should it be paid for by the entire city? And there's always those discussions about, you know, whenever things get repaired and fixed, who's going to pay for it? Most of the time, we're kind of all in this together. This is the city of Morris. You know, you may not live on that street, but somewhere along the line, we use the street. And obviously, I know Blaine Hill has done a lot, and our city has done a lot with street improvements over the course of probably the past 10 to 15 years.
right now, and maybe you don't know about this, but you can, living on that street, you get an assessment at times and whatnot can happen in the planning process because you're going to be a primary user of that. You may, for a short period of time, get a higher local tax because you have a newer street and whatnot. So it's just one of those things, you know, you can't escape it, death and taxes, man. Right, Ben Franklin? Also going back to zoning, I thought we should mention something about Willie's too, because Willie's had a special zoning that, what do they call it again? When the greater good for society.
Eminent domain?
Eminent domain, exactly. They rezoned and called eminent domain for where Willie's is right now. Because that location worked out well for parking and for the building and whatnot. And I'm trying to remember, there was a butcher
shop
and something else that were there, and those closed, and Willie's went there because of the rezoning and the eminent domain that the local government felt was important to this community and whatnot. So now, how do we pay for all these kind of things?
taxes.
Yum.
About 25% of local government revenue comes from big areas property taxes. Again, property tax is a tax on a land and building, and some of the communities also have local sales tax. I know all of us, those 3 teachers that are sitting here, we have our homes, we pay property taxes to the city. I just recently, I think 2 days ago, I got a letter in the mail from our assessor. That's the person that corrects that. That's Craig Swanson. And what ends up happening is you get a little letter that tells you what your property is valued at, and then they look at what's assessed the next year. And my taxes went up a little bit. You can argue that, you can talk about it if you think that somehow your property has been incorrectly valued. I don't think that happens very often, but that is really how we end up paying for a lot of the things that we have in our city is through property taxes.
If you go down to see the Vikings, you know, local governments increased a basic sales tax there to pay for part of that also.
Yeah.
All right. Service charges and profits, they come from borrowing and bonding and sharing revenue, which is Like Big Cat was a shared revenue piece here in Morris, where the university paid some, the city paid some, the school district paid some. These are all individual government entities.
I think you just have to realize one thing, that cities can borrow money. The city, like you mentioned earlier, like our water treatment plant, the city does not have enough money just to write out a check. And so as a result, the city is gonna have to borrow money. And the city then, when they borrow money, usually borrow money by taking out bonds. And as a result, other people, not around Morris, but throughout the United States, or maybe throughout a different country, borrow us money to do our projects, and then through taxes, as a course of every year, money is then put into a fund, and as a result, that fund grows, and then we pay off the bond, and that's how we pay for large projects like, let's say, the water treatment plant.
And what you may or may not understand is that, like, each government has a credit rating. And so you can have a really good rating, and then that means the bond that someone will buy from you because you're a good,
Because you pay your bills.
you pay your bills. And so the amount of interest that you would pay as a city would be lower. Now,
That's a
if you
good thing.
don't, yeah, that's a good thing. If your credit rating goes down and then you need to borrow money, then your interest rate goes up
Which
because
costs you more money.
you're a high risk. And Morris has a good
Awesome.
credit rating,
Awesome.
and so that's really important.
Hey, imagine that, we're ending with a graphic organizer.
Hmm.
It's almost like it was planned. And once again, yeah, here's a nice little spider web of a graphic organizer explaining the different parts of local government and where money comes from and what money goes to and whatnot. So make sure you're well aware of all this.
Thanks for listening, and hopefully, I think we're gonna have a study guide again with this, correct? To be able to
Absolutely, yeah.
Help you out, and as always, if you have any questions,
Give us a call,
Give us a call.
check with us in an email.
Find us on the Google.
Have a good day, you guys.
bye.